Arthur Peabody stood perfectly still in the quiet, climate-controlled heart of his Ohio home, a house where the gentle whir of the air filtration system was the loudest audible sound. It was 3:17 a.m. Arthur had found that the most effective way to address the nightly dissatisfaction of wakefulness was not with movement, but with meticulous, unwavering attention to the mundane. Tonight, the object of his attention was the top shelf of the kitchen pantry. The pantry itself was a standard-issue built-in fixture, painted a slightly off-white that had been officially named alabaster shroud by the manufacturer, though Arthur simply thought of it as the color of mild obligation. It was lit by a single low-wattage LED strip, which cast a soft, utterly uniform light, eliminating all dramatic shadows and making the contents look flat, almost two-dimensional. The top shelf was exclusively dedicated to breakfast grains, specifically the various sizes and shapes of extruded and puffed cereals that Arthur kept for guests, or for that rare moment when he felt compelled to engage with a sweetened morning ritual. There were 15 boxes in total, arranged in descending order of size, from the largest family-sized carton on the far left to the smallest single-serving sampler on the far right. Arthur began with the largest box, a voluminous package of crisp oat rings. He reached up slowly, consciously regulating his arm's extension, ensuring that the movement was one fluid, unbroken arc. The cardboard, he noted, felt cool to the touch, and there was a subtle, almost imperceptible grainy texture on the printed surface, unlike the smooth, glossy finish of the smaller boxes beside it. He slid the box forward half an inch, just enough to tilt it toward the light without disturbing the alignment of its neighbors. The front panel was a study in beige and muted blue. The brand name, in a font that suggested both trustworthiness and mild excitement, occupied the upper third. He focused on the nutrition label, which was affixed to the side panel. It was a standard black and white grid, slightly askew, perhaps a millimeter or two, a tiny, insignificant imperfection that Arthur registered and then meticulously dismissed. He located the expiration date, printed in faded dot matrix ink near the bottom flap, 05/14/2026. He repeated the numbers silently once, 05142026, a quiet reassurance of temporal order. He replaced the box with the same slow, deliberate care, aligning its front edge precisely with the shelf's lip. The movement generated the slightest whisper of air displacement, which immediately dissipated into the ambient silence. Next came the second box, the cornflakes, a medium-sized unit. The label on this one was glossy, reflecting the low LED light in a diffused rectangle. He noted the color difference. The white on this box was a cleaner, colder white than the alabaster shroud of the pantry and the warmer white of the oat rings. He found the date on the top fold, 07/03/2026. He noted that this box was 50 days younger than the first. He did not ask why or if it mattered. The mere observation was the task. The third box, the puffed wheat, was the last of the large segment. It was a utilitarian brown box with minimal color, emphasizing health and rugged simplicity. The date was hard to read, printed directly onto a dark brown fold line. Arthur had to angle the box a second time, rotating it the full 180 degrees to catch the faint ink. He read 04/22/2026. He paused, noting its relative antiquity compared to the others. He rotated it back, observing the precise placement necessary for it to settle without leaning against its neighbor. He proceeded down the line of smaller boxes, each one requiring a slightly different grip, a subtle recalibration of force to avoid crushing the empty space within the box. He processed the frosted honey clusters, the multi-grain squares, and the bran bits. With each box, the ritual was identical. Lift, rotate, locate the date, register the numbers, replace. The mental effort was minimal, yet absolute. There was no room for extraneous thought, only for the cool, hard presence of data and geometry. The sameness was soothing. The slight variation was a gentle challenge, quickly met. He was a sentinel of freshness, a guardian of shelf life, a quiet observer of the march of time encoded in a 14-point font.
Having completed the upper stratum of the pantry, Arthur slowly lowered his gaze to the second shelf. This level was devoted to canned goods, a solid, dense population of aluminum and tin, promising long-term sustenance and presenting a new geometrical puzzle. Where the cereal boxes had been tall, hollow, and texturally varied, the cans were uniform, heavy, and metallic, radiating a dull, stable coolness. There were 3 distinct subsections on this shelf. The left third was occupied by vegetables, the middle third by beans and legumes, and the right third by soups and broths. Arthur chose the central section, the beans, for his next focused study. There were 21 cans of beans, each one 15.5 ounces and roughly identical in height and circumference. They were all stacked 2 deep, 3 rows wide. The main visual difference was the color of the paper labels, a muted spectrum of deep greens, browns, and off-whites. Arthur began by focusing on the first stack of 6 cans, all black beans from the same manufacturer. He reached for the back can first, a slight challenge due to the tight fit. He used his index finger and thumb to gently roll the can forward, catching the lip before slowly lifting it. The metal was smooth, slick, and cold. He held the can and rotated it slowly, observing the faint, almost invisible seam line where the metal cylinder met the lid. He read the label: Premium Select Black Beans, Low Sodium, Net Weight 15.5 ounces, 439 grams. He repeated the numerical sequence in his mind: 15.5 ounces, 4, 3, 9 grams. The repetition was the key. He then located the 3-line code embossed on the very bottom of the can, a series of capital letters and numbers indicating the batch number and date of production, too faint to read quickly. He rubbed his thumb over the code, feeling the gentle, raised texture of the stamping against the smooth metal. The first can's code was L04A19.22. He returned it to its exact starting position in the back row. He repeated the process for the can in front of it. Lift, rotate, note the subtle difference in the paper label's adherence, a minute bubble near the bottom edge. Locate the code, L04A19.23, 1 unit different. He placed the second can down, ensuring no metallic clink was heard, only the soft, dull weight of the can settling onto the painted wood shelf. The third stack was kidney beans, 7 cans in total, slightly darker labels, a shade of maroon that bordered on dark rust. He noticed that the manufacturer's logo was printed slightly higher on these labels than on the black bean cans. This small, immaterial fact was intensely satisfying to catalog. He noted the contrast between the rigid geometry of the can itself and the organic flowing lines of the stylized red kidney bean graphic on the label. The juxtaposition was noted, accepted, and filed away. He worked through the next 5 cans of kidney beans, noting their batch codes, which varied minimally. The entire process of checking one can, from the moment of the slow lift to the quiet settling back into place, was timed by Arthur's internal clock to take exactly 35 seconds. This consistency was essential. There was no need to rush, no impending deadline, no consequence for slowness, only the measured, deliberate passage of time confirmed by the presence of the bean cans. He moved to the last section of beans, the pinto beans. There were 8 cans here, all from a different brand, distinguishable by their bright yellow and green labels. A sudden burst of mild color in the mostly deep-toned arrangement. These cans had pull tabs, which meant the top lid was slightly recessed and the metal a fraction thinner. When Arthur lifted the first can, he noted this minor variation in weight and structure. The focus shifted from the embossed bottom code to the small, smooth aluminum tab on the top. The final can of pinto beans, the 8th one, was different. Its label had been torn slightly on the back, revealing the gray-white of the adhesive backing. He carefully examined the tear, noting that it was a precise half-inch diagonal cut. He briefly considered if it needed to be moved, but since the contents were unaffected, he decided that the integrity of the arrangement, not the integrity of the packaging, was the priority. He gently replaced it. He surveyed the finished section, 21 cans, all checked, all confirmed, all returned to their assigned location, organized by type, facing forward, their codes and labels registered. The task was complete, and the quietness of the pantry had absorbed the entire gentle process.
Arthur remained rooted before the open pantry, his presence a calm, vertical pillar in the pre-dawn quiet. His attention now shifted to the remaining third of the second shelf, the final configuration of dense, long-term storage, the soups and broths. This section introduced a complexity of form that the uniform cans of beans had lacked, mixing the classic metallic cylinders with newer, rectangular cardboard cartons. He began with the condensed soups, the small, stout cans clad in the familiar, bright primary colors. There were 13 of these, organized into 2 rows, the red-labeled tomato and cream-based varieties on the right, and the green-labeled vegetable and chicken noodle varieties on the left. The contrast in the labels was immediate and slightly jarring compared to the muted earth tones of the bean section. Yet the cans themselves possessed the same satisfying, solid weight. Arthur selected a can of cream of mushroom from the front row. He noticed that the ink on the white portions of the label was remarkably flat, absorbing light rather than reflecting it, in stark opposition to the glossy red band around the top. He performed the standard ritual, a slow, controlled lift, checking the weight, which he judged to be exactly as expected, heavy enough to suggest liquid density, but light enough to indicate the lack of a full, ready-to-serve volume. He inverted the can to check the date stamp, a dark, rubbery ink print applied to the bare metal bottom. The code was long and functional, P11D 2027 November 15. He repeated the information silently, P11D 2027 November 15. He ran a fingertip over the base, feeling the subtle, ridged, concentric circles left by the manufacturing process. He noted a small, dried droplet of water on the metal that must have survived the dishwashing cycle weeks ago. He gently wiped it away with a corner of his sleeve. He cataloged the next 9 cans in sequence, noticing the minor variations in their construction. Some of the lids had a tiny, recessed indentation near the rim, a manufacturing flaw perhaps, or maybe a design identifier for a specific canning plant. He noted that the 3 chicken noodle soup cans all shared this indentation, while the tomato soup cans did not. This pattern, this gentle, unintended organization within the chaos of bulk purchasing, was profoundly soothing. The dates ranged from July 01, 2026 to December 28, 2027, a quiet 2-year scan of guaranteed stability contained within the small cylinders. Next to the condensed cans were the large rectangular cartons of ready-to-serve broth. These stood taller than the cans, creating a visual boundary on the shelf. There were 4 of them, 2 cartons of low-sodium chicken broth, 1 beef broth, and 1 vegetable stock. These were fundamentally different objects. The material was thick, waxed cardboard, and the feel was dull and slightly yielding rather than the cold, hard resilience of metal. Arthur took the first carton of chicken broth. The process of handling it was different. He had to grip it with his entire hand, careful not to squeeze too hard and distort the fragile geometry. The light caught the waxed surface, giving it a soft, matte glow. He examined the twist-off plastic cap on the top corner. It was a pale blue, perfectly fused to the carton material. He gently tested the seal with his thumb, confirming its unbroken integrity. The expiration date was not on the bottom, but printed directly onto the plastic flange of the cap in a series of tiny laser-etched dots. 2026 1003 M5. He focused on the dot metrics pattern, noting how the faint indentations varied in depth, some dots appearing almost complete, others merely suggestions of ink. He repeated the numbers, 2, 0,
2, 6, 10, 03, M5. The M5, he surmised, was likely the machine code or line identifier. He replaced the first carton and moved to the second, identical chicken broth carton, checking its cap. The code was 2026 1003 M6. The simple sequential increment of the final digit provided a quiet affirmation of industrial order, a small piece of evidence that two objects, appearing identical to the eye, were separated by a microscopic sliver of production time. Having finished the second shelf, Arthur paused, letting his eyes adjust to the subtle, complex landscape of the items he had just analyzed. Cereal boxes above, cans and cartons below, all fixed, all documented. Then he lowered his focus to the third, shallower shelf, reserved for the small, concentrated components of cooking, the spices. The spice rack consisted of a narrow, three-tiered metal wire frame, currently holding 37 different containers. Arthur decided to focus on the jars in the middle row, which housed the powdered herbs and ground spices, the most vibrant elements of his inventory. He carefully extracted a small glass jar of smoked paprika. The jar was cylindrical, but small enough that the glass felt warm in his hand from the ambient air, unlike the cold cans. The lid was a simple red plastic, dusted with almost imperceptible layer of fine orange powder, paprika dust that had escaped through the perforations of the shaker cap. He held the jar up to the LED light. The contents, the paprika itself, presented a dense, uniform color, a deep, earthy orange-red that held the light like a mineral. He noted the level of the powder. The jar was approximately 2/3 full, a level that suggested regular but not excessive use. He judged the fill line to be exactly 1.7 centimeters below the rim. He examined the paper label wrapped around the circumference of the jar. The word paprika was printed in a classic serif font, the letters slightly curved by the glass. He found the best buy date printed on the bottom edge of the label, 08-2028. He repeated the numbers, 08-2028. The distant promise of flavor retention. Next came the jar of dried oregano. This jar was nearly full, the contents a pale, dull green, lighter and less reflective than the paprika. He noted the contrast in texture. The oregano, being leafy and dried, created tiny, fragmented shadows within the jar, unlike the monolithic density of the paprika powder. He checked the expiration, 11-2028. He proceeded through the next 10 jars, ground cumin, garlic powder, onion flakes, dried thyme, bay leaves, black pepper, cinnamon, allspice, and nutmeg. With the allspice, he noted a particular detail. The jar had a faint circular scratch on the side, likely caused by being rotated against a neighboring jar during a quick cooking moment. The scratch was superficial, reflecting the light like a thin silver thread. He felt the scratch with his thumbnail, noting its precise location relative to the center of the label's brand logo, exactly 3 millimeters to the left. The final item in his focused study was the jar of bay leaves. Unlike the ground spices, these were whole, brittle, and dry. The jar was only 1/4 full. He gently shook the jar, noting the faint papery rustle of the leaves as they settled. It was the only audible sound the inventory process had produced, a soft, dry whisper against the silence of the house. He checked its printed date, 04-2029. The bay leaves, the least consumed, were the longest dated item on the shelf. And Arthur replaced the bay leaves and stepped back, allowing the quiet inventory of the soups, broths, and spices to settle in his mind. The precise location of the scratch on the allspice, the difference between the M5 and M6 carton codes, the 1.7 centimeter fill line of the paprika were now the only active thoughts, steadying and utterly calm.